So in love with you. This is your victory. Now, I know you didn't do this just to win an election. And I know you didn't do it for me. You did it because you understand the enormity of the task that lies ahead. But my main message is to the parents of Trayvon Martin. You know, if I had a son, he'd look like Trayvon. They had their entire lives ahead of them. Birthdays, graduations, weddings, kids of their own. Among the fallen were also teachers, men and women who devoted their lives to helping our children fulfill their dreams. So our hearts are broken today. It's the idea held by generations of citizens who believe that America is a constant work in progress, who believe that loving this country requires more than singing its praises or avoiding uncomfortable truths. It requires the occasional disruption, the willingness to speak out for what is right, to shake up the status quo. That's America. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Facts, evidence, reason, logic, an understanding of science. These are good things. These are qualities you want in people making policy. Black, white, Latino, Asian, Native American, young, old, gay, straight, men, women, folks with disabilities, all pledging allegiance under the same proud flag to this big, bold country that we love. That's what I see. That's the America I know. Obama out. Time flies, even if turkeys don't. I thought it was pretty good. Has anybody tried that wine? How good can that wine be? Basically, I'm here to announce that we're building Iron Man. This has been a secret project we've been working on for a long time.
I want to know what that wine tastes like. I mean, come on.
We're lighting the national Christmas tree. You just push a button and it's electrified, which is exactly what you don't want to have happen at a turkey party. I thought that was funny, Michelle. And then there are moments like this where I pardon a turkey and send it to Disneyland. Dad jokes for every occasion.
Tonight, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is ramping up his rhetoric, using state media to threaten to test fire a long-range missile at any moment.
The intercontinental ballistic missile will be launched anytime and anywhere, determined by the Supreme Headquarters.
A U.S. intelligence official tells CNN to grab world attention, Kim Jong-un could time a provocation, like a missile test, to coincide with Donald Trump taking office, a missile capable of delivering a nuclear weapon to the U.S.
An intercontinental ballistic missile test launch preparation is in its last stage.
How close is Kim to having a deployable long-range missile? Analysts say gathering intelligence inside the secretive regime is difficult, and that Kim could have that ability now, or he could be maybe 3 years away. But U.S. officials and outside experts say there's a crucial part of that capability they believe the North Koreans haven't perfected yet.
What they haven't done is, in an all-up test, not only launch the missile, but then have it re-enter for an intercontinental range. Now, having said that, they have done some other things that cause us to worry. This, for instance, is an example of a ground test that kind of simulates the heat attached to reentry, using really another missile engine to burn up the reentry vehicle and approximate the stresses of reentry.
But as North Korea's technology advances, experts warn a dependable long-range missile in the hands of this violent, brash young leader would be a game changer. If and when he gets that capability, how aggressive would he then be?
Kim Jong-un is likely to be more aggressive with an ICBM than without it. The fear is not that Kim will use a nuclear weapon against us. The fear is that he will use conventional force, cyber force, and other provocations against us because he thinks we can do nothing about it.
What will President Trump's options be for countering that threat? Former Defense Secretary William Perry says if North Korea launches a test, the U.S. should consider shooting it down.
Certainly one of those actions could be disrupting the ICBM tests in flight. That would have to be on the list.
Now, if North Korea actually fired a missile toward America or its allies, current Defense Secretary Ash Carter has just promised the U.S. forces would shoot it down. Experts say one reason the U.S. and its allies should maybe hesitate to hit North Korean missiles on the launch pads would be the threat of Kim's retaliation. He could possibly launch a massive conventional attack on South Korea's capital, Seoul, which one analyst describes as a sitting duck.
An expert on the business of Alibaba, Duncan Clark. He is the chairman of BDA China. He's the author of the book Alibaba, the House that Jack Ma Built, and he joins us now. Duncan, so good to see you. And just want to get your thoughts here. Again, after all the China bashing we've heard from Donald Trump, why did Jack Ma fly to New York to meet with him?
Well, to some extent, thank you for having me on the show. This is Jack Ma's pivot to Trump. He was quite close with the Clintons. And I had lunch with Barack Obama last year. But as we just heard from Andrew, yes, I mean, Alibaba is a high-profile Chinese company listed on the New York Stock Exchange. It doesn't actually have much business in the U.S. itself. It's trying to bring in U.S. brands to Chinese consumers. And with the other issues that we just heard about, you know, this is an opportunity to sort of trumpet, if you will, Ma's own strategy to open the doors of China to U.S. goods.
Yeah, especially at a time when there's a lot of scrutiny of Alibaba. You know, its accounting is under SEC investigation. As Andrew just reported, Alibaba is back on the notorious markets list. What do you think that meeting with Trump and that literal pat on the back from Donald Trump means here? I mean, will it reduce concerns and market skepticism about Alibaba?
Well, yes, we have to balance reality television now with politics and other things. It did look like an episode, perhaps, of one of his shows. I don't know if Jack's The Apprentice, but certainly, you know, Jack made the statement that he wanted to make, which is that he loves China, he loves America. He views himself as a bridge between both markets. So, you know, Jack has always played this linking role. They started out as an international business-to-business platform. So he's really trying to also create some headway for other businesses they have now. Don't forget they're investing heavily in Hollywood. They made an investment in Amblin Entertainment, Steven Spielberg's company. So he doesn't want to be pigeonholed, I think, with other Chinese companies that might be subject to trade friction or worse. You know, he's trying to put himself as, you know, first among equals here.
Yeah, Jack Ma, as you point out, not just an e-commerce giant, a media giant as well. In your book, you talk about Jack Magic, the charisma of Jack Ma that just wins over investors, wins over world leaders. Do you think Donald Trump is falling for Jack Magic here?
Yes, I mean, we heard about Steve Jobs' reality distortion field, and to some extent, maybe Jack Jobs now is the thing. By associating himself with Jobs in the U.S., Jack is trying to push that with the incoming president. But yeah, I mean, there's an element of, you know, fantasy about China, the opening of the Chinese market that has, you know, long been part of the West relations with China. So I think he's playing a bit to that, and he can demonstrate in China they've created, you know, 10 million jobs locally, perhaps many more in terms of servicing those jobs. But the question is, can he do this in the U.S.? Can he really help the small and medium-sized enterprises unlock China for them? It's going to be a tall order. But that's all part of the magic and the mystery that he's promising here.
And your thoughts about that? I mean, realistically, for SMEs in the United States, how much success can they have on Taobao or Tmall selling into mainland China?
Well, the big focus now is on Tmall. We've heard about the problems with Taobao and, you know, fakes and others, and it's also a very sort of small company selling to individuals. But increasingly, Tmall, which is where Alibaba hosts, you know, brands in there, you know, the idea is that they could have some merchants. They already have companies like Macy's and others selling it. Look, it's very early days, but this is part of the future of Alibaba, is to shift from this old small merchants selling domestically to bringing in some international brands. So whether he do $1 million, that is a tall order. But, you know, frankly, it's 5 years. He's saying this will happen 5+. That's 1 year longer than the administration. So whether we'll be around in four years to think exactly about where we're going with that, we'll see. But it's very useful to Trump. Certainly it's useful to Alibaba. But right, some healthy skepticism, of course, is in order here.
And one more question for you. We know that Alibaba has had deep ties with the Chinese government. So is it safe to assume that Jack Ma met with Chinese officials before that meeting with Donald Trump in New York?
I know there's a lot of speculation in China about that. I think people in China probably imagine that. And one thing we know that Jack Ma is heading to Davos. Xi Jinping, president of China, will be at Davos. So the U.S. will be absent, of course, in many ways in terms of the government. So this is some bragging rights for Jack there. But I think in Davos, Jack will have to play a very close second fiddle to Xi Jinping. He'll need to be humble there. So this is a way to have some headlines before all of that.
Gotcha. Duncan Clark joining us live. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, it was a highly contentious campaign. I, like a lot of people, made comments about the issues in that campaign. With regard to Secretary Clinton and some of the comments I made, I do believe that could place my objectivity in question. I've given that thought. I believe the proper thing for me to do would be to recuse myself from any questions involving those kind of investigations that involve Secretary Clinton that were raised during the campaign, or could be otherwise connected to it.
Okay. I think let me emphasize then with a follow-up question, to be very clear, you intend to recuse yourself from both the Clinton email investigation and any matters involving the Clinton Foundation, if there are any?
Yes.
Let me follow up again because it's important. When you say you'll recuse, you mean that you'll actually recuse and the decision will therefore fall to, I assume, a Deputy Attorney General? I ask because after Attorney General Lynch met with President Clinton in Phoenix, she said she would, quote unquote, defer to the FBI, but she never officially recused.
No, she did not officially recuse, and there's a procedure for that which I would follow. And I believe that would be the best approach for the country, because we can never have a political dispute turn into a criminal dispute. That's not in any way that would suggest anything other than absolute objectivity. This country does not punish its political enemies, but this country ensures that no one is above the law. This caricature of me in 1986 was not correct. I had become United States Attorney. I supported, as the civil rights attorney said, major civil rights cases in my district that integrated schools, that prosecuted the Klan, that ended single-member districts, that denied African Americans the right to hold office. I did everything I was required to do. And the complaints about the voter fraud case and the complaints about the Klan case that I vigorously prosecuted and supported are false. And I do hope this hearing today will show that I conducted myself honorably and properly at that time, and that I am the same person, perhaps wiser and maybe a little better, I hope so, today than I was then. But I did not harbor the kind of animosities and race-based discrimination ideas that I was accused of. I did not.
Navy spokesperson Yang Yang said the drill tested coordination between naval vessels and aircraft and was a regular part of the annual training plan. He said the event did not target any specific nation, region or objective and was in line with international law and practice.
But tonight, because of what we did on this day, in this election, at this defining moment, change has come to America.
8 years after his victory speech from Chicago's Grant Park, President Obama is returning to his hometown.
If we don't need no justice.
But some are giving him a cold welcome, saying his promise of hope and change never came.
We're not going to be saying thank you for the 8 years of work that he didn't do in the black communities.
Activist and former Obama supporter Jamal Green referring to the surge in violence in Chicago. Last year marked its deadliest year in nearly 2 decades, with 762 people murdered, nearly 4,000 people killed on the streets of Chicago during Obama's 8 years in the White House. One flashpoint, the 2014 deadly shooting of black teenager Laquan McDonald by police, which launched the largest investigation of a police department by the U.S. Department of Justice.
I would be embarrassed as the president to know that I've done really not much for the people that put me there.
I said in Grant Park when I was declared the winner of the presidency that this wasn't a task for 1 year or 1 term or even 1 president.
Some of his faithful supporters don't believe it's fair to blame the president for the city's violence.
Obama tried his best. He's only the president. He's not a dictator. He can't do what he want to do.
The people who criticize him really don't know no better. We had a black president who served 2 terms, and with everything that he did for us, it's just a blessing. It is a blessing.
I can't send the Marines in to Chicago, but it is heartbreaking. Chicago is the one big city where you've seen a big spike in the murder rate.
Which is why Jamal Green wishes the president would have done more.
He's neglected to talk about the starving communities. He's neglected to talk about the violence. He's neglected to talk about the lack of investment into urban communities. He's neglected to talk about police brutality, issues that are plaguing the black communities all over the country. And so we do feel neglected, and we felt like he could do more, and he could have possibly saved some lives.
Now, I talked to some people here in Chicago who believe that perhaps President Obama can do more for his hometown as a former president. They say that he's already doing more. For example, bringing the presidential library to the South Side, which will pump money and also jobs to that area. And Aaron, other people I talked to say they're just hoping for the president to speak bluntly about some of the issues plaguing the black community.
Officials in Afghanistan have reported twin blasts near parliament offices in the capital, Kabul. At least 22 people have been killed and scores more wounded in the attack. A minibus carrying staff from the NDS, Afghanistan's intelligence agency, was targeted in a crowded area during afternoon rush hour. A first attacker blew himself up near the new parliament building, followed immediately by a car bomb. The Taliban has claimed responsibility for the explosions.
I'm not going to comment on every single appointment that the president-elect makes. What I can tell you, though, having co-chaired President Obama's transition, is that he said to his lawyers, tell me where the lines are, and then I'm going to color well within the lines. He did that with the appointments in the White House, and he also did that with his cabinet. He wanted to make sure that our due diligence was done ahead of time, that we knew everything that was important to know about a nominee, because that nominee was going to represent the president.
So what advice would you give to Jared Kushner?
Listen to the American people. Make sure you stay in touch with them. Make sure you have your pulse on them. Washington can swallow you up whole, and I think it's incumbent upon all of us who serve in the White House to remember every single day who we're here to serve. We're here to serve you, the American people.
For all the what you call the torpedoing you've seen that's gone on, one thing that can't be taken away is what he represents in American history.
My God.
How much pride do you leave with tonight for what it means to have had Barack Obama as president?
He has elevated African American people so much. And Michelle Obama, as they say, put the O in Obama. I cannot tell you how proud I am of them. And I look at the guys in my neighborhood. You know, I live in the inner city. You've been to my neighborhood.
Yeah.
They're pressing their chests out a little bit more. Their heads are up. Their graduation rates are going up. They feel better about who they are. They now know. They used to think that the only thing they could become was a basketball player or a football player. Now they know that they can become the president of the United States. Priceless.